I would say we're already well on the road to improving. But the amazing power of cinema is that we can tell the story, and you're telling it through this documentary. And chances are a lot of people will get to see it, right? And it might change one or two people's lives. And that's your job done. You've positively impacted somebody's life. They're going to look at you or look at me or look at somebody else in our situation differently. And that's the power of cinema. And that's why I'm inspired every day to do this, that kind of way.
This documentary, it's more than a college assignment. It's something that I want to broaden, I want to expand, and I want people to see what it's like to be in the mind of someone with a disability.
Currently in Ireland, there's less than 3% people employed with a disability, and that needs to change. And I think for the screen media industries, they could be doing a lot more. If you take the UK as an example, the BBC and Channel 4 have numerous schemes to involve people with disabilities and to make the programming more diverse. And that's something that is lacking in our schedule in this country. RTE, TV3 should be developing similar schemes and making programs that represent all the people in this country. Because everybody has a voice. And I think there's fabulous content being made now. If you take Simon Fitzmaurice, Paddy Slattery, there's so many fabulous filmmakers out there who just need to get their content on the air or on the cinema screen.
I think the obstacles aren't so much physical or material obstacles, they're more psychological. It's really about people's reactions to me as a person with a physical disability involved in a very physical industry. So it's generally the biggest obstacle for me was people's reactions, people's interactions, and just people's behaviour in general to me. Because on the whole, people are very accommodating and very understanding and very patient and very, they're just very easy to get along with. But there are other people that you meet and they immediately see and they immediately think, God, what's this guy, poor little guy in a wheelchair kind of doing? And, and suddenly it becomes a challenge. Suddenly it becomes work. So if I'm being really honest, I would say they're probably the biggest challenges for me, was getting over other people's perceptions about who I was and what I had to say about life and how I was actually going to say it.
I don't want to be paid. I just want to go about my daily life, and I don't want people to look at me and be like, oh, there goes a rolling charity case. Like, that's not what I'm about. I want to come into college, I have my friends, and I want that shown on screen rather than just being a problem that needs to be dealt with or a burden, really. You feel like the way you're represented, you don't feel like a person. Some of the time you feel like a statistic, and I really felt like that needed to change.
People shouldn't be overlooked because they have some kind of disability. And in my opinion, everybody has their own perspective of the world and they bring something unique to the table. So if you have a wheelchair student, they could have this story because they see things in a totally different light that you wouldn't get from somebody else. And that's why it's important to be inclusive and to accommodate them in whatever way possible, because it's not that hard to do. In many instances, it's just technology, and technology is constantly changing. And particularly here at this college, we embrace the technology because we realise how it's making things more inclusive and how it's democratising film and television production. I think in the last 5 or 10 years, things have significantly improved for disabled filmmakers. There's definitely more opportunities for them to go out there and make work. Like if you take Simon Fitzmaurice as an example.
I think a big inspiration for me would probably be Simon Fitzmaurice.
He's recently written and directed My Name is Emily, and he has motor neuron disease. So he has absolutely zero mobility, and he actually communicates with his eyes.
Like that's really the height of disability, like not being able to speak, not being able to really move, but still being able to pull off a great film like My Name is Emily.
So for him to be able to go out and make a feature film, I think is a staggering achievement, and it has to be commended. So if you take that as an example, I think anybody who is in a wheelchair should be empowered by that.
Like that's incredible, and like you kind of sit there and you're like, God, why am I feeling sorry for myself? Like it's a real kind of kick up the back, really, you know, like you're not the worst affected, like you've no excuses, like go to your film and stop whinging about what kind of hand life has dealt you, you know, like just go do it, really.
I suppose in Dundalk Institute of Technology, we try to facilitate that by upgrading our TV studio, and we're currently now the only 4K studio in Ireland that has complete wheelchair access.
Their confidence in me kind of, like with investing in the new equipment, making an investment really in what kind of feels like my future and other disabled students' future, it really makes you feel it makes you feel like you have someone behind you, which I'm not really used to a lot of the time. Like you really do, like a lot of the time you feel like, oh, like I remember my family, they were like, oh, that's going to be fairly difficult, you know, to do, you know, in your condition, and I'm more than my condition. Like there's a saying that I found during my research, and it's, don't diss my ability. So that kind of, it takes the diss out of disability and you're left with ability. So that's kind of what I wanted to bring forward, and that's really how I felt. I felt like the disability was gone and the ability was there. So really, I think the whole process really gave me a lot more confidence in myself, and it really kind of reaffirmed why I wanted to do this. Like, I want to be a voice. I'm sick of being a statistic, and I want to make sure that other people out there know that you're not a statistic, you're a person, and you deserve a voice just as much as other people do.
I think that we need to be represented, and if we could, like, I think we should just, like, tell a story. Like, people with disabilities are people. They have lives, they have friend trouble and boyfriends and whatever else they do. Like, they're the same. They just, as well as that, have a disability, but it's part of them and it's not them. It's not their whole thing. It's not their whole worth isn't that they have a disability, that they have whatever if they have any help like a cane or a wheelchair, that isn't them. That's just what they use to help them.
What I really want to do, I want to start a conversation. I want people to sit down and actually realise how little there is for people like me, because you feel like you're forgotten about.
If I was a filmmaker and I wanted to represent disability, I think I would represent the real things that happen. You know, the real lives. These people aren't just disabled, they're people. Especially for young people, I think there isn't enough for young people to relate to and feel like it's okay to not be this certain mold of a healthy person.
I think a big part of my past was feeling like I was on my own, and feeling like, you know, right, cut it there. I think what I tell myself is, you're not a burden, and you're not your disability at the end of the day. Like, there's a lot of positive aspects of me that are more than the chair, and I think what representation kind of fails to do is talk about all those different things, and you feel like you're a disability rather than a person. With the documentary, I think it's kind of a healing process. because it makes you feel better, because you know that you're not really, that you're achieving something. You know that you're doing something, and that you're turning what you saw as a negative in yourself into a positive for other people to really think about, and to really start people thinking, oh, maybe I should look at things a bit different, or maybe we should start making sure that no one else has to feel like she did when she was younger, because nobody should have to grow up and feel like they're not wanted because of something that's out of their control.
I would say we're already well on the road to improving. But the amazing power of cinema is that we can tell the story, and you're telling it through this documentary. And chances are a lot of people will get to see it, right? And it might change one or two people's lives. And that's your job done. You've positively impacted somebody's life. They're going to look at you, or look at me, or look at somebody else in our situation differently. And that's the power of cinema, and that's why I'm inspired every day to do this, that kind of way.